the best and easiest, safest way for our body to store these things is to sneak them away into fat cells.
All right. So Kelly, thank you so much for being here today. I'm very excited to have you on. For those that may have not listened to the podcast that I was on with you, we kind of talked on the environmental side, and now we get to support people on the health side of things, which is really important. So thank you for being here today and kind of sharing your knowledge with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Michael. Mold and mycotoxins have become such a hot topic, and so many more of the functional MDs that I'm working with are testing their patients for mold toxicity. And I've had to really support them through the process of getting their body to a place where they're detoxifying these mycotoxins out in a healthy way that makes them, doesn't run them down, that makes them feel good, and that's really gentle. So it's exciting to share that side of it here today.
Yeah. That's amazing. And are you seeing like an increase in, obviously if you're testing for it, you're identifying it. We're probably testing for it more today than ever before because we have so much awareness. Are you seeing a lot of this exposure in people?
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, you touched on some of the reasons that we're seeing this. It was like poor construction. You think about all the homes that are made with drywall and have, holes in copper pipes, and we're just moving into these tract homes and making them pretty on the inside. I mean, I personally just told you before we started recording that, we just had a leak in our house and we've only been in it 3 months and just totally redid our piping. So you never know, new piping, old piping, you have to be on top of leaks and looking for those things. And the last thing that I want anyone to have to go through, children to adults to autoimmune compromised patients, is to add on top of that mold toxicity. Just it's a hard thing to get through. But again, you highlight a good point. It really comes down to testing and identifying more of these patients. The more testing we do, the more patients we identify who are dealing with this issue, the more people we can help. But it kind of takes me back to mammography versus tomography. It's 2D imaging or 3D imaging. And people said there was an increase in breast cancer, but really a lot of that was attributed to our improved technology that gave us better vision, visibility on what was really happening. And I think, with things like the dust test and an increase in better diagnostic testing for mycotoxins, we're just seeing more patients coming in with the ability to identify that as an issue.
Totally. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, you can look at it that way, right? Oh, there's an increase. So no, we're just testing for it better. We're more aware of it now. And, we have better information. And what we're finding is that unfortunately, more people have been adversely affected by it. And that's really what the outcome is. Before we get into the Fab Four, which is a staple in the Rubino house, by the way, we want to get down to the basics of understanding, like, okay, so if I'm in a toxic environment, how do these toxins affect the body? Are they getting into fat cells, for example? Kind of walk us through that process.
Yeah, well, we're definitely in contact with a bunch of environmental toxins that might be phthalates, BPA, VOCs, mycotoxins, heavy metals, endotoxins, pesticides, like pick your flavor, right?
Yeah.
And depending on what it is, it may interact with the body in a different way, where you might have certain phthalates acting like estrogen in the body and interacting with our body like hormones. You might have other toxins that are stored and put in fat cells because our body is looking to protect ourselves. I think in a perfect environment, if the environmental toxic load was low enough, we would be able to identify something as a toxin and immediately move it into detoxification. And that detoxification process happens in the gut and in the liver, phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification, and excretion. So it's either being excreted through our stool, through our urine, or through our sweat. And when you talk about mycotoxins or mold, we're talking about urine and stool. And, our liver plays a big role in that. But nowadays, I mean, people are eating a lot of sugar. The liver has to do a lot of detoxifying with fructose, drinking a lot of alcohol. There's a lot of acetaldehyde we have to detoxify. And then you're layering on all of these environmental toxins or, kind of like it's a to-do list for our liver, really. And so the best and easiest, safest way for our body to store these things is to sneak them away into fat cells.
And what's really interesting about all of this too is I'd say there was a period of about 5 years where I was putting on weight pretty rapidly. I had maybe like 20 pounds a year or something to that effect. And, I was eating really good. You would think I was eating cheeseburgers 3 times a day or something, but I was not. If anyone's ever seen my wife, she's very fit and thin. And yeah, all I eat pretty much is cauliflower rice and some sort of protein. I mean, no joke, like every meal. So it was baffling how this was happening. And once I started detoxing last year, all of a sudden the weight started melting off. I wonder, for me, I don't know if my body was trying to insulate myself from toxins or what have you, and was storing fat. I don't know. But maybe you can help shed some light on what you think was happening.
Well, every case is absolutely different, but if you are dealing with a toxic load, you're going to have a low level of inflammation in your body that is going to prevent weight loss, and it is going to put you in a place of fatigue, brain fog, increased cravings, sleep disturbances. So really, when it comes down to having someone detoxify toxins and lose weight and have like vitality and energy and be sleeping well, it's not, you can't just cherry pick one. We have to look at the you as a holistic being and all the inputs and support the outputs, which is really that detoxification piece. And so, you know, I would have to look at your blood test to know a little bit more, Michael. But when it comes to detoxification, what I see people do is they want to lose weight really quickly and they don't really know what they're holding on to. And they're not focused on high quality foods like, lean, healthy proteins, healthy fats, fiber rich veggies, cruciferous veggies, herbs, spices. There is all the rainbow. There is so much goodness we can put in our body to support the detoxification process. And a lot of times when I sit down with clients who've tried to lose weight, either they lose a few pounds, but then they feel fluish, or they have extra phlegm, or they feel inflamed, or they can't sleep. Those are side effects of dealing with losing weight and also having to detoxify what's coming with that weight loss. And so I like a gentle approach. I really like knowing that we aren't calorie counting or strictly fasting into those detox symptoms, and to know that we are going slow. We're allowing our liver a break. We're taking a break off of alcohol. We're really focused on lowering fructose. We're freeing up space in the liver to say, hey, we're planning to lose weight. We're going to increase our nutrient density. We're going to increase our amino acids to support the liver to do that. And at the same time, make space in the liver to then allow for lipolysis to happen, to allow for fat loss to happen, and to have open pathways to be able to detoxify those things out of the body so they don't end up in recirculation, making us feel fluish and sick.
Amazing. And I think about that. It's like once I started detoxing, and the tide started changing for me, and I wish I had those blood results to share with you, because that would be an amazing conversation. But you made a good point earlier about how everybody is so different, right? You need to see individual profiles to really get an understanding of what that individual is going through. And it ties into what I do too, right? No home is built the same. Every single family is different. Every individual suffering in that home is different. And it's about looking at things scientifically, understanding what do we need to improve for them, right? And how do we do that in a practical way that can take shape for them? Because if you make recommendations that somebody can't feasibly do, it's not very helpful. But when we come back to this, I think it's really important to just highlight that fact that we need to look at things from an individual basis. I'm imagining that you have an amazing program called the Fab Four, but you're still making individual recommendations for specific human beings. Is that correct?
Definitely. I mean, I can take one client, for example, that it leans slightly more plant-based and maybe doesn't focus as much on protein, who's dealing with mold toxicity. And I might really, I know I might not, I mean, have someone who's leaning plant-based, lower in amino acids. I need to up their amino acid intake because it is absolutely required for phase 2 detoxification. When we think about phase 1 detoxification, we are talking about all of those water soluble vitamins, all of your B vitamins. So I want to make sure that they're on a multi. If most of the time, if they're with a functional MD and they're chelating and binding, they're going to be getting those B vitamins. But you want to provide the body with what it needs to create glutathione in the body. So we talk about phase 1 detoxification. We're talking about B vitamins. We're talking about amino acids, branched chain amino acids to be even more detailed, and glutathione. So this is it's phospholipids. It's all of the stuff you're going to get from amazing red meat and proteins. And I think people think when they think detox, they think green juices and salads and vegetables. And that's great. That is definitely going to support the liver and be a liver tonic, supporting phase 2. But phase 1, it needs those amino acids. It needs all of the phospholipids. It needs glutathione. And for your body to produce glutathione, it also needs amino acids. And the best place to get B vitamins is going to be in things like red meat. So how can we get all of that goodness from proteins for phase 1 detoxification, and then all of the goodness from leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, herbs for phase 2 on your plate? And that's where I take the Fab Four and say, okay, depending on your diet and lifestyle, you may need to be the person who really focuses on getting a side salad or putting some leafy greens on your plate at every meal. You have no problem getting your protein in, or you're someone who needs to really up your protein. And I need you to be diligent at not skipping protein at breakfast and not just having cereal or an oatmeal or, a smoothie that doesn't contain protein, for example. We need both of those things to support detoxification, to get those toxins to our gut and have them excreted.
Yeah, no, and I think, when it comes to diet, I mean, it's a very confusing subject. I mean, here 2 days ago, I was ready to throw out everything that contained erythritol. Whereas, then I realized that, okay, maybe there's a little bit more to this study we should probably think about before we do that. And there's so many. I thought mold was bad. I mean, there's so many conflicting information about diet that it's really hard to get a handle on things. One day it's like, if you don't eat all plant-based and throw away every single meat you have and never buy meat again, you're done. And then the next day you hear like, no, throw your plants away. Okay. You just eat red meat. And so it's very confusing on where to go. Right. And what I love about your stuff is it's like, let's have some balance, right? Because which makes sense, right? Should be a balance, almost everything. Batteries, positive electrons, negative electrons, balance. And so I think going into the Fab Four would be really helpful for people to really understand how to support their body through this phase. Because, from one thing that was clear to me is, seeing a doctor is great. Detoxing, and the support around detoxing that you get from a medicine, functional medicine doctor is amazing. The diet is so important.
It's huge. And a lot of times people don't stick to diets. They have a lot of excitement at the beginning of the year or around a birthday or before a big event to quote unquote diet. But when we think about diet, I want to erase that 4-letter word and move into a place of lifestyle, something that's sustainable. And sustainability really comes from feeling positive and creating momentum in the way that you're eating. So when you think about creating a lifestyle, we want to think about having guideposts or pillars that are important. And so I use the Fab Four with my clients. It's protein, fat, fiber, and leafy greens are the general categories. And we'll go into each one of those and what some examples are and how that can support you to not only balance your blood sugar, but to feel your best and really support gut and liver health. So first and foremost, when it comes to building that lifestyle and having a to-do list, the to-do list is not what you shouldn't eat. It really is, hey, look for these things on your plate. They can be delivered in so many different ways, in a smoothie, in an egg scramble, in a salad, in a bowl, in a wrap. traditional hot meal, something even made into a casserole. You'd be surprised at the versatility of the Fab Four, but they're just buckets in their categories, and they allow for people to have bio-individuality around things that they love and don't love, things that they want to eat, don't want to eat. But generally speaking, the Fab Four is going to get you what you need to get from your food. You have essential amino acids, meaning you have to get amino acids from your food, no matter what your lifestyle is. Doesn't matter if you're a raw vegan or carnivore, you absolutely have to have amino acids from your food. Amino acids make all of your hormones, neurotransmitters. They support, cell growth. Like if you're trying to build muscle mass on your body, you have to have amino acids. They also regulate your hunger hormones. So when people don't have amino acids or proteins within their meals, there are hunger hormones that sort of scream at you to eat. And if we're looking to really have good detoxification and proper bowel movements and to have a lot of energy for the long term, we want foods that sustain for more than an hour at a time in our body. And proteins are the most satiating and the most sustaining over time. So when we think about adding protein to breakfast, we can get 4 to 6 hours between needing to eat our next meal. When a breakfast doesn't contain protein, someone might be hungry 90 minutes to 2 or 3 hours after that, and they may be thinking about food more often. You have nerves that innervate your gut that are looking for amino acids and fatty acids, these essential nutrients that we know, essential macronutrients that we have to be getting from our foods. And that's because they're there to sustain us and to allow us to survive. So, it is so, so important no matter what your lifestyle is. It's so satisfying, it's sustaining, and we need it for phase 1 detoxification. So when you're talking about a mold specific client, it supports liver health. So protein is the first pillar. I'm obsessed with protein. You can have whatever type of protein you like. If you're a salmon person, a whitefish person, shrimp, lobster, red meat, bison, get wild with it, sheep, goat, whatever is your flavor and what you love, turkey, chicken, eggs. When you're looking at a plant-based proteins, lentils are a great option. There are beans. When you move into the plant-based space, these are incomplete proteins. So they're not going to make you feel as satisfied unless you're pairing them appropriately. And they are less bioavailable. So you're going to absorb more animal-based proteins through digestion than you will plant-based proteins. But when I have a plant-based client, we just work around that. We set goals higher. We work to find ways to add complete proteins to their plan. I have a chocho bean protein powder, which is a complete protein. It is made by crushing and soaking, drying, and grinding the chocho bean, which is also known, it's a variety of the lupini bean. It's one of the very few complete protein beans, but you'll find those in the Mediterranean and down in South America. But it's ketogenic in nature and lectin-free, which I think is also supportive of gut health for people, especially plant-based clients. So we find ways around it to make sure we're getting the amino acids that we need. But protein is critically important. If anyone has body composition goals, if they have, energy goals, if they have weight loss goals, one of the number one things I'm looking for truly is if they're at a suboptimal protein intake place, or if they're at an optimal place. And I think a good place to start is 0.75 grams per pound of body mass. So that's protein.
Yeah, I think just to tie that in, what I love about what you just said, and I know you have 3 other things to cover, so I'll give it right back, is you empower people with, kind of picking their own flavors of what they typically like and helping them utilize that for them, right? And I think that's so important because how many, diets or lifestyle changes do people ask you to make where they're like, don't eat all of the stuff that you love, and here's all this other stuff that you don't love that you now eat.
Right. Well, and that's also a mindset thing. You have to be able it isn't realistic that someone's going to make every single meal that they'll ever eat from today until the day they die at their home. And we are communal beings. We want to be out. We want to be celebrating, going out on dates, seeing, having family dinners, celebrating at other people's homes. Sometimes we need support making meals, and we're getting things via takeout or at a grocery store, prepared foods. And so we can start to get really hard on ourselves when we think about all these environmental toxins and all of these things that are quote unquote problems in our diet. And that can make people feel paralyzed by their choices and also discouraged and not in a place of positivity and momentum towards their goals. We have to say, there has to be a place where hitting it 80% of the time and feeling proud of what's on your plate is going to get us a lot further than anything else. And so, yes, I want people to decide what they want. I also want them not feeling bad when they go out to a restaurant and they go, oh, I really feel like, I'm going to get that chicken dish and like, I want to hit the Fab Four. So let's add that arugula salad to start, or who wants to share the warm olives or the carpaccio, or, you have flexibility in this, and you get to check off protein and fat and fiber and greens and just feel proud of yourself versus saying like, I shouldn't have had that. It came with X, Y, and Z, or I shouldn't have drank that, or why did we order that, or why I took a bite of that. And all of that negativity and stress, when we internalize it and say that we've made a mistake, doesn't allow for long-term consistency that is required for any type of body composition change. That's required especially for detox. When we think about long-term chronic issues, mold toxicity, when someone has a case of SIBO, when someone has a diagnosis like type 2 diabetes or heart disease, you cannot just do a diet or live a lifestyle for 7 days or 2 weeks. This needs to be sustainable, not perfect, sustainable going out, sustainable celebrating with friends, positive, productive. And that is honestly the most important thing to me that my clients feel, is that they are capable. They have so much runway to improve. They're going to find the things that they feel empowered by, and they're going to make a few choices to go in the right direction. And so a lot of times when I work with people individually, I'm looking for the biggest needle movers, or the things that may be easiest for them to change, because that positivity really creates momentum. So protein, though, can be one of the biggest levers that I can pull in anyone's life when it comes to increasing energy and feeling your best, and really seeing results. So it's the first pillar for a reason. And then the second pillar is fat. And we're looking for healthy fats. Again, we talked about those nerves that innervate the gut that are they're just like spying on what you're eating and looking for those amino acids and the essential fatty acids. So those are your omegas, right? 3, 6, 9. And we are getting enough omega 6 and 9 from seeds and nut butters and all the things that we're eating. Where we tend to be low is in omega-3s. And these are going to be in pasture-raised eggs, pasture-raised red meat, and highest in seafood. So this is your fish, and that's where I like to, encourage people to focus on how can we get more omega-3s if they need to supplement, great. But healthy fats are putting avocado on your plate, adding olives to your plate, using olive oil or avocado oil to cook, thinking about how can we increase the amount of healthy fats in those proteins. And it's interesting because if you're in a place of dieting and not in a place of lifestyle and nutrient, I like to think about nutrient density and really upping our nutrient status over time. And if you're thinking about that, you aren't thinking about calories. You're really thinking about choosing a fatty fish like salmon and opting for the entire egg, including the egg yolk, and making the choice to have, a nice piece of red meat that may be a little bit marbleized. All of that is going to get you that healthy fat. And I think fat was demonized for a long time, but it is critically important for hormone balance and really delivering all those fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. We can think about vitamins E and A. They're actually antioxidants, and they reduce damage when our liver is required to detoxify toxins. So we need these things, just like vitamin C. So vitamin C is a water soluble antioxidant, but you're getting vitamins E and A from those fatty pastured and wild animals. And so really important to not have those fat soluble vitamins be depleted. And we've seen it through, the pandemic, and just a major, just unbelievable amount of people who are vitamin D deficient, right? And so we just know that all of those fat soluble vitamins need to be included in our everyday life, and they come into play and are more bioavailable when we're eating fat. And so protein and fat does this amazing job. Protein calms the body and makes it full and satisfied, and fat is like a blanket that slows down the digestion of that meal, making it last longer in our body. And I think, in the olden days when people would say, have 5 to 6 small meals, 5 to 6 small meals a day, and here are your snacks. And that's better for you. What the science now tells us is it's harder on digestion. We have worse digestion the more often that we eat. We have worse oral health, more cavities, more acid in the mouth that creates cavities. We have worse digestion when it comes to the number, quantity, and quality of stools when we're eating more often. And that full, complete meals are better at not only making us feel satisfied, but retaining and maintaining energy levels throughout the time when you're not eating, when you're fasting between meals. And so there's such a case for having a meal that lasts longer in your body. Whereas looking back, when people were calorie counters, 5 to 6 small meals a day, and they wanted to feel like whatever they ate went through them in 2 minutes, and they're light and airy. But the problem with that is that foundation of feeling calm and with it and whip smart and energized in a sustained way that doesn't undulate up and down with what we're eating really is energy preserving and more sustaining in the long run. And so when you talk about fat, layering on a avocado or guacamole or an olive oil or a tahini or a pesto on top of, let's say, a fish or a chicken with roasted veggies. Let's say you did summer squashes or asparagus, or you had a cauliflower rice bowl like you were talking about, but it came with a tahini drizzle and basil and cucumber, and it's this amazing Greek bowl. That tahini is playing a major role in allowing that lower carbohydrate, high fiber, non-starchy meal to be sustaining for you for 4 hours or up to 6 hours till that next meal, without having a major dip in your energy levels or having bad cravings. And so fat is critical. And so often I'm, taking all of the things that my clients feel, the demonizing aspects of fat, and breaking them down and saying how wonderful it is and how supportive it is, and how you can take real food and make it feel really satisfying with that. So fat is pillar number 2.
Fat for a second, we talked about demonizing. It's so true. I mean, we grew up as kids being told that fat is bad. Fat makes you sick. Fat makes you have heart attacks, right? And now we're understanding that, no, you blasted a whole category. There are good fats out there that are actually really good for you, that are good for heart health. And so now we're having to kind of undo all of this bad information that we've received. What do you think? How do you think that all came about?
Well, I think, there you have to a little bit follow the money. And when you look at the cereal industry and big ag business and where we started subsidizing certain crops, and the relationship with the American Heart Association and a lot of those large big ag companies, there was just a big push for whole grains. And when you look at saturated fat and the belief that it had played a major role in heart disease, it sort of was a fire starter for a huge campaign around saturated fat, bucketing in all of fat. And it coincided at a time when people were using calories as a way to lose weight. So then, knowing that protein and carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram and fat is 9 calories, that is a really easy way to lower your calorie intake as well. And so you have these two simultaneous movements that are colliding in a place where the whole huge generation of baby boomers are still afraid of fats. I had a client this morning on Zoom who, runs a big Fortune 500 company and was proud in telling me that he had had egg whites this morning. So there's a large community of people that still very much believe that all of those fat soluble nutrients and vitamins. I think about an egg yolk, that is the multivitamin of the egg. You have choline, you have all of the omega-3s, you have all your B vitamins in there. It's like, depending on if it's pasture raised, it might be even higher vitamin D. It is the multivitamin. And that's where the good stuff is. Yes, there's amino acids in the white, there's the protein in the white, but we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have to really capitalize on what Mother Nature is providing. And most of the time, I think closest to its natural form is always going to be synergistically best for our body in regards to bioavailability, nutrient status increase, supporting blood sugar balance, decreasing inflammation. The list goes on. And we tend to say one thing is good or one thing is bad, and we try to separate even in food products and categories, fat from things, or just remove fiber from things. And in reality, we should just be eating as close to nature as possible, whole foods in their whole form, in their most unprocessed state. And really, that's where the fiber and greens piece of the Fab Four rolls in. It is about focusing on putting those non-starchy, fiber-rich vegetables on your plate to provide all of the phytochemicals, those antioxidants, polyphenols, flavonoids, all that good stuff, plus water, plus fiber to feed your gut microbiome into your body so that you can support positive, healthy bowel movements, so that you can have this interaction with the microbes in your gut and the phytonutrients in your foods and the fiber in your foods, that fermentation process that then creates postbiotics. So these little microbes release postbiotic chemicals that are anti-inflammatory, that are cellular energy, food for our cells. Like, it's short chain fatty acids. Learning about short chain fatty acids, which are a postbiotic of the fermentation of our foods, that's brain energy. That's literal energy for your brain cells. And we can do that with every plate. And it doesn't have to be on or off a diet. It's a lifestyle where you decide, hey guys, let's add the broccoli side order to the table. And who wants to get let's add the crudité to the table, or let's find a way to just add garlic and onion to this dish, because we know that those are a phenomenal fermentable allium. And so really, it's the fiber and greens is, where are we getting the produce? Where are we getting the rainbow? Where are we getting the fiber? How are we being creative when it comes to adding produce, vegetables, or fruits to our plate, or herbs or spices that we never used before, because all of it is adding nutrient density to our body.
So amazing. And, just to recap, right? So we have protein, we have fat, we have fiber, we have leafy green vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And you said eating the rainbow. So it's good to have some, bell peppers and other colorful vegetables as well.
Phenomenal source. Yes. When I think about greens, we think about vegetables deep in color. We think about all the colors of the rainbow, all the herbs, all the spices. It's flavor. It's the pow of your plate to say, like, ooh, I just took that meal, broccoli and chicken, from being boring, and I'm adding pesto to it. It's green and it's flavorful and it's herbaceous and it's satisfying and it's it's a completely different experience. And that's where I want my clients to go to, not a place of deprivation, but a place of experimentation, a place of exploration, and truly a place of satisfaction, so that they don't have to constantly be taxing their body with needing to digest meal after meal and snack after snack, and instead are sitting down to whole food, balancing meals that support blood sugar balance, that aren't overly processed because they're saying they can't have those things, but really because they've shifted their focus to the Fab Four, and to kind of put icing on the cake when it comes to mold. There have been studies that have shown that sugar and starchy foods will feed mold. And so whether that's in your environment or systemically in your body based on your environment and what the foods that you're eating, there are definitely cons to having an overly processed high sugar diet, especially when it comes to mold detoxification.
Yeah, it was definitely, you beat me to the punch, because I'm going to definitely ask you about sugar. Sugar is probably everybody's arch nemesis. Tastes real good, when you eat sweets, but obviously it's wreaking havoc on the body. I'm imagining it disrupts the gut. What are some other things that happen when we eat too much sugar?
Right. Well, when you think about what we talked about in the beginning, which is the majority of toxins are stored in fat cells if we're not able to detoxify them, we want to also talk about the fact that lipolysis, or the burning of fat, happens when our blood sugar is balanced in an anti-inflammatory state and we don't have excess insulin floating around in our body. And when we're having a highly processed diet or a sugar-rich diet, we are not only driving up blood sugar, causing a little bit of a blood sugar roller coaster, which is going to cause more cravings for sugar, but now we're full of insulin and we're preventing lipolysis, or the breakdown of fat where those toxins might live. And so people might bang their head against a wall wanting to lose weight or detoxify, but they're not allowing their body any time to do that because they're constantly making the choice to have a high dense carbohydrate processed sugar laden meal. And not only is it hyper palatable and really craveable, but that blood sugar roller coaster it creates just perpetuates those cravings. So where blood sugar goes up, insulin's released to help our blood sugar come down. That crash induces more cravings, and we want more of that more of that, a food that would bring our blood sugar back up. And so that's really hard because we feel like a failure and an inability to get off that blood sugar roller coaster. And then when it comes to detoxification, alcohol is one thing, but one of the major causes of liver disease in children is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And we're seeing this from sugar. It's from all of the sodas and sports drinks and juices that are, in gallon jugs and pasteurized and being poured into 8-ounce glasses for our children multiple times a day. What happens is fructose is 100% metabolized in your liver. And so you can think about your body as a house. Like, you have toxins and your body's going, okay, well, just shove them down in the basement for now. We'll store them there, right? You can think about that as like your fat cells. And what's happening when we're constantly eating sugar and these processed foods is that a room is on fire, and your body's not going to go declutter the basement when it's dealing with elevated blood sugar, when it's dealing with needing to metabolize loads of fructose in your liver. When we don't have space, when we're even if we're eating a highly processed food diet and it's a blood sugar roller coaster, your excess glucose is even shuffled back to your liver to be metabolized and managed and converted to a triglyceride. Like, these are to-do lists for your liver that keep you alive, that keep your blood pressure low, that keep your blood sugar low, that ensure that you are in a healthy state, and they're immediate needs. Whereas the mycotoxins or the phthalates or the things that our body can just say, well, we'll just fix that when we're not dealing with this elevated blood sugar issue or this inflammation issue or this heart disease issue, this high blood pressure issue. these things are actually threatening our life right now. So we're going to deal with these fires in the kitchen or, you know, in the house, and we'll deal with the basement later. And that over time, you know, whether it's a mild exposure to something chronically over time, or it's a big exposure in an acute moment, if we have all these fires in the house and we're not balancing our blood sugar and eating in an anti-inflammatory way and supporting phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification, we are ultimately going to be hoarders in a basement. And we can't do that because it really wrecks us over time. And so my goal is to always support clients to get motivated and excited to get consistent so that they aren't dealing with those fires, and that their body, when they finish dinner at say 6 or 7 o'clock at night and they don't eat breakfast till 6 or 7 the next day, it's not an excessive fast, but they're maintaining a 12-hour fasted window from dinner to breakfast. Their body has some time to say, hey, we don't have to deal with elevated blood sugar right now while Kelly's sleeping. I'm going to go deal with a few other things. And they're able to detoxify and cleanse in a way that is deeper and more meaningful for long-term health.
Amazing. You know, the amount of stuff that I've just learned sitting here is just absolutely, it's astounding. I bet so many other people listening to this will learn as well. Because I think it's really important. And the reason why we're here today is to really break down this understanding of the foods that we're eating and how they're making an impact, especially with detoxing. A lot of people are coming here dealing with environmental toxin exposure, and they're trying to detoxify, and there, you know, it's so much conflicting information out there. It's really hard to understand where to go. Before I let you go today, you know, one of the things that I know I fell in love with that you have created is these amazing protein shake recipes. Okay. So for someone like me who's always on the go, you know, that's always part of the challenge is how do you get this Fab Four lifestyle going if you need to be out all the time? And the protein shakes have been just absolutely amazing for me, and I'm sure they'll be for others. How did you come up with this idea and get all these recipes? Because they are phenomenal.
Well, as we just discussed, the Fab Four is blood sugar balancing, right? It focuses on fiber and leafy greens versus processed carbohydrates. It's regulating your hunger hormones with protein and fat. And what I found early in my career about a decade ago was that most people were running into a health food store after their gym workout and they were grabbing a smoothie. And when I saw the ingredients, it was like apple juice or maybe water, and then a bunch of fruit, a little bit of greens, some superfoods, which may be like some special ancient, you know, grain or goji berries or a little spirulina. Weren't focusing on the things that were essential amino acids and essential fatty acids. And it was truly a blended version of sugar. So high amounts of sugar that would dysregulate blood sugar and have someone be hungry 90 minutes to an hour after that workout or, you know, that breakfast when they were trying really hard to be healthy. And I love the idea of a protein shake because it is so easy. Throw it in, you blend it up, you're on your way. And I need that as a busy mom of toddlers and a business owner. And so I created the Fab Four smoothie, and we just fill the blender with 1 to 2 cups of an unsweetened beverage. So it could be unsweetened almond milk or coconut milk or water, or if you did do a green juice, or a juice, it would need to be a green juice without added fruit, right? We're really looking not to have liquid sugar. And then we want to add protein. So if you're plant-based, that might be a pea protein, a chocho bean protein, like the one I created. And you're really looking for that protein to be minimal ingredients. So the protein, a flavor, vanilla, you know, organic vanilla, organic cacao, and maybe a sweetener, organic monk fruit and stevia would be my preference. But even people do it with unsweetened versions as well. So you have your protein powder, and then you have a fat. So it might be a fourth of an avocado or a tablespoon of almond butter, a handful of walnuts. I even have a client who does a chocolate olive oil sea salt smoothie in the morning. So there's a lot of
Nice.
different ways to go, but you want to pick a healthy fat, 1 to 2 tablespoons. And then the fiber piece would be chia, flax, psyllium husk. If I have a client, for example, who is chronically constipated, trying to detoxify and lose weight, I may lean towards a psyllium husk because I know that it is really great at removing old estrogen and cholesterol from the bowels and toxins that have been eliminated from the liver, and that it is really great at creating consistent bowel movements for people daily. And that's what we're looking to do when we're talking about detox, right? So fiber, 1 to 2 tablespoons, and then leafy greens, handful of spinach. You can do a strawberry basil smoothie if you want, but really what I'm looking for in the Fab Four is, are those 4 things included in your smoothie first? And then if you'd like to add fruit or a superfood, great, let's do it in a way that doesn't make the smoothie a blood sugar roller coaster. So 1/4 to 1/2 cup, if you're adding, say, for example, a frozen banana, I always have my clients take their bananas and break them into thirds or halves, depending on the size, throw them in their freezer. Really easy add to the blender. You're getting that flavor, you're getting that potassium, you're getting the fiber, but it's not turning into a carbohydrate sugar smoothie. It foundationally is protein, fat, and fiber to keep you full and make that smoothie last until lunch. And what that allows for, that protein that regulates hunger, the fat that elongates the blood sugar curve, the fiber that stretches our stomach and makes us feel full and satisfied. All of that is what adds up to allowing for a gradual decline in blood sugar towards lunch instead of a crash, which when you arrive at lunch feeling like, what should we have, Michael? Versus someone orders something immediately, like there's going to be a different choice that's made if we've waited too long or our blood sugar has crashed. And so my whole goal with breakfast always is for people to create a smoothie that is robust enough, or a breakfast that is robust enough using the Fab Four, to get them to a place where they get to lunch and go, great, I'm able to make these choices that I want to make, which are, to have the Fab Four, to grab that salad or have that lettuce wrapped burger or do whatever it is that makes me feel good, because it's easy for me to do it, not because I'm trying to white knuckle it or force it. And I've been craving foods for the last 90 minutes and been thinking about this lunch forever. If we're at that place, it's not going to be sustainable for the long run. So we really work to create a smoothie that is not only satisfying and delicious, but really fills people up. So they might start with 1 tablespoon of fiber and say like, oh, I noticed that I'm hungry around like 10:30 or 11. Let's add a tablespoon of fiber. Oh, let's tweak it. We'll up the protein a little bit to get you to lunch. But it's always about adding the Fab Four first, and then looking to make sure that we haven't added too much sugary fruits or superfoods that would dysregulate blood sugar and have us crashing down way before lunch.
Yes, and they are really delicious. I just want to
Thanks, Michael.
Preface that. Kelly, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your knowledge with us. We're so grateful, and I know everybody listening will be so grateful too. And everyone, you can find Kelly at bewellbykelly.com. Is that right?
That's right.
Perfect. Well, thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Michael.